It's all about Knight Rider. When I have the honor of talking to Knight Rider main theme co-creator and composer Stu Phillips. Stu's created this futuristic 1982 team with Glen Larson, and my talk with him of course centers around this. Stu's also worked with a lot of very famous people, Leonard Bernstein, Ray Charles, Sammy Davis Jr., just to name a few. If you haven't read his book, Stu Who, I would recommend it. It's a very humorous trip through Stu's professional life. But of course, our talk today will center around the Knight Rider theme and scores. Stu Phillips scored 13 episodes from the pilot through Forget Me Not in season 1. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, this theme and this score has a very special place in my heart. I fell in love with Knight Rider as a kid when I was 10, and I think a major part of it was also related to the score. To me, it holds a very special place in my heart. I listen to it often, both when I'm driving in my car, when I'm driving in my kit replica, of course. But also when I'm at home. It doesn't need to be when I sit down in the couch. So it's Stu's fabulous work. And I don't know about you, but to me, it's like the theme and the different variations of the theme is kind of the heartbeat of Knight Rider. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation with Knight Rider main theme co-creator and composer Stu Phillips.
Hello, Jacob. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thanks. Is this Stu Phillips?
Yeah, it is. It's, I can't prove it, but it is.
Yeah, it is. I know. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me.
No problem.
I'm so happy that I get this chance to talk to you about your work on Knight Rider. You know, I'm a big fan of the score, of the theme. You know, it really lightens up my day. If I have a bad day, I just put it on my phone and on the loudspeakers, and I'm happy again. So yeah. But I in order not to take too much of your time, I think we should.
Time is not a problem, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
I don't have another call in 20 minutes or anything like that, so time is not a problem.
Great.
As long as we waited this long and you finally, we're finally talking on the phone here, so whatever it is you need to know or ask or something, go ahead. Okay, yeah. I'm ready.
Thanks so much.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think we should begin with some words on your impressive career. How did you get to work with so many talented people? How did you get to make these scores that people enjoy all over the world?
How did I get to it? Yeah. Well, I started in the business moderately and with lots of failures along the way before it finally got successful. And one thing led to another. I was originally in the record business, as you probably, I'm assuming now you have some knowledge of my biography, right?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Okay, fine. Well, then you know that I started, in the record business, and through a bunch of contractual agreements and disagreements and everything else, ended up becoming a film composer because they Columbia Pictures didn't want to pay me a lot of money to be a record producer, so they said, we'll offer him some movies, and that way, I have to work twice for the money. But I got to really feel that that was something I enjoyed doing. So for the next almost about 7 years, I guess, I did both. I was in the record business and did some TV and some films. During that period, I did the Monkees television show for 2 years. And to get the record straight, I did not write the songs. All right, I only wrote the background score.
Yeah.
And in 1969, I met with some independent producer who had a whole bunch of pictures for me to do, and I finally decided that I was tired of the record business. And in 1969, I just retired from the record business. And did strictly films, and then had a brief thing with Capitol in 1972, I guess, something like that, where I went back and did another Beatles Hollywood Strings thing in my own album. And after that, about, I guess 1974, I started in at television with MacLeod, and then the pilot for $6 Million Man, and so on and so forth, and the rest of it you basically know. And I remained in the film and TV business, scoring business, and gave up the record business completely. So that's basically how I got into it,
Yeah.
And and having working for the same producer like Glen Larson, I just went from one project to the next. So somebody says, "How did you get Knight Rider?" I got it because that was the next project that Glen Larson had, and I was at that point. That's 82, so I'd been working for him for about 7 years. 7 to 8 years, and he liked working with me, and as far as I was concerned, the money was good. I was making a living, sent my kids to school, and after that, it's composing for TV or film is just making a living. It's another way of making a buck so that you can have some money to spend on your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to say to you, oh, it's awe-inspiring, and every score was like a brilliant, attack. No, it was a business,
Yeah.
What's next? Okay, what do you want on this one? Okay, we'll give you that on this one. You want classical? Guy, you got it. You want pop? Oh, you got it. You want rock? Okay, you got it. Whatever you wanted. After a while, it, your own inventiveness basically kind of went out the window, and you were a slave to people, directors and producers, and you were more than happy to give them what they wanted, so they gave you the money.
Yeah.
It's very cold-hearted. I know.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like something that some of the other composers would say. They make such an art out of it. Oh God, as far as I'm concerned, it wasn't an art; it was a business.
Yeah.
Although I will say that there are some scores that are basically beyond the just making a living. They really are inspired scores. Many of them. Yeah. And here and there, I managed to do a score here and there that I felt I was kind of inspired and felt good about,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a pretty, compact, the compact version of my musical life. Yeah.
So if
question 2.
Yeah. If you were to describe what kind of what type of scores you made, do you consider yourself to have some kind of trademark on your scores?
No. I kind of was like a jack of all trades. Having as a child, as a young person, having basically brought up on classical music, and then went to pop music, and then went in the record business and started making, semi rock and roll records and rhythm and blues and records and doo-wop records, which was my first big successful record was Blue Moon with the Marcells. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Yeah.
Yes, you are?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Well, that was kind of like the breakthrough. So, having been through all those various types of music, when it came to scoring, I was able to give you whatever you wanted. You wanted classical, I'll give you that. You wanted pop, I'll give you. You wanted rock, sure, no problem. I was exposed to all of them. I was doing all of them. And which made Glen Larson, my producer I worked for 14 years, very happy, because he knew that he could call on me to do any type of score. So that was basically my hallmark was like, what do you want? You got it,
Yeah. It's a good thing to be able to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not comparing myself to anybody else, but all the John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith and all the Horner and all of those people, they were all able to do the same thing. They just, got very important features to do. So as a result, their attitudes became a little more of like, I don't need to do all that other stuff, but they did.
Yeah.
I mean, John Williams started in television at Universal doing a bunch of, whatever you wanted, you got, and John was not pretty good. He was a damn good pianist and also a jazz pianist. So he had a lot of abilities. I'm not familiar with Jerry Goldsmith's background. I know he studied with some very big classical teachers, but he also, he went from In Like Flynn, not In Like Flynn, wrong, Our Man Flint. Yeah. I'm sorry, In Like Flynn, I did. Our Man Flint, which were little, the semi-comedic adventure things, to Air Force One or whatever the heck else. He did the whole thing. So even the composers who you say, well, that's their style, and everything, they did all of the other stuff. They just were able in this business, it's not what you write for the film, it's what the film is that you're writing for, know?
Yeah.
The Gustavo Santaolalla won a Academy Award for writing the music of Brokeback Mountain, which didn't even deserve to be nominated. Not the movie, I'm talking about the music,
Yeah.
But because the movie was such a breakthrough movie, and the Motion Picture Academy people thought so highly of the subject matter and the approach and everything. They thought so highly of the movie that he won an Academy Award over 2 John Williams scores and a John Barry score and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's more the picture you write for than it is actually what you write. Occasionally it's what you write, but anyway, I was kind of like a jack of all trades composer.
Yeah. So I'm very interested. How was it working with Glen Larson? You did a lot of
14 years. We obviously didn't have a hell of a lot of arguments in 14 years, or he would have gotten rid of me. So we had our moments, a couple of times I swore I'd never work for that guy, man, again, and then some very wise. Actually, he was a music librarian, but we were friends, and he'd always put his hand on my shoulder and say, "Don't be an idiot." This man has so many, TV shows in the coming up and everything else. He says, "Don't be an idiot and walk out on this." So, but we had our moment, but not face-to-face moments. We never had that. It was always pretty pleasant. But he was, at times, all I can say about him is God bless him, he never bothered to come down to any of my sessions. In fact, when we got Battlestar Galactica, we did 2 sessions a day for 5 days. That's 10 sessions plus the overtimes and everything with the LA Philharmonic. And Glenn showed up for 45 minutes on Wednesday. We recorded from Monday to Friday, and on Wednesday he showed up for 45 minutes and gave me a handshake and a pat on the back, said, "Sounds great, Stu," and he left. And that's it. So I was fortunate, unlike a lot of other composers, to not have a producer on my back constantly. Yeah. And some of my buddies and other people who were doing stuff, they were so envious of the fact that they said, "You mean Glenn didn't come to your session?" I said, "He never comes to my sessions. Once in a while he walks through the stage on his way to somewhere else, and he'll, oh, Stu's recording? Oh, I'll stop in and say hello," and that's it. He stops in, says hi, and that's it, and leaves. You know. So that's not to say that there weren't times that he took some of the cues that I wrote and decided I don't like it and threw it out, you know, and tracked it with something else I wrote, which always aggravated me and made me very angry. But I thought to myself, what's the sense of arguing? You know, it's going to be his way anyway. It's never going. Yeah. So why bother? Why bother to get your blood pressure up and suffer a heart attack or something? No sense doing it. Just let it flow off your back. That's it. And there were other times he was unbelievable, praiseful of, oh, I love the score, Stu. It's just great, he was very Battlestar Galactica. When they presented it to the network, they wanted to have it tracked, and the original cut that he had was like almost 3 hours. And my music editor and myself, we spent a couple of weeks and we tracked it mostly with classical music and some music I had written for other shows and everything else that we use, but mainly a lot of classical music. And when I sat in when they played it for the networks and a lot of scenes, the network people say, "Oh God, that's great! That's beautiful! Great music! What is it?" And Glenn would nudge me and say, "What is that? What is that?" And I said, "That's Stravinsky." He says, "Oh yeah, okay, that's Stravinsky." And he'd go to the network, and say, "That's Stravinsky. Oh God, it sounds great. We should have something like that in the final thing." So naturally, when we got down to it, he said, "They loved that scene with the Stravinsky music, so give me something like it when you compose it, Yeah.
And he knew you would?
Yeah. I mean, I went around it, left, I kind of went back door on the thing and tried as little as possible to make it anything similar to it. After all, it was copyrighted music. So, but, I knew what he meant and was able to satisfy him and satisfy the network, and everybody was happy and I was happy. And as I can say, through the whole Battlestar 23 episodes that I did, not counting Galactica 1980, not counting that, Glenn showed up, as I said, he showed up 45 minutes when I did the original movie pilot. And after that, during the course of recording, maybe he might have showed up 3 times or 4 times and never stayed more than 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and generally gave me a thumbs up and said, "Sounds great, Stu," and he would leave. And as I said, that's not to mean that he didn't go in the dubbing stage after that and say, "Well, you know what, that cue's, I'm not sure I like that cue. Let's change it with the cue that from the other reel," Yeah. But, working with him was like, you don't work with somebody for 14 years without, but we did not have any face-to-face, face-offs or anything like that. There was a very good relationship. Yeah, I had my off times with him where I was mad at him, but my wife would say the same thing. Hey, we kids are in private school here. We don't want to take them out because you can't hold your temper. So shut up and shut up and go to work. You know?
Yeah. So.
It's yeah. Go ahead.
You also made or composed and developed, created, I might say, the Knight Rider theme with Glen Larson. Can you try and take us through that process? I know it's been a long time.
There was no Jacob. There was no. God knows how many times now since 1972 I've been asked that same question. You know, to take me through the process. There was no process. There was none. It was a simple, logical thing that if you're going to have a car that speaks and a car that has all those electronic gadgets, that the music should be, if possible, something electronic. And in 1982, you know, computers were, synthesizers were not that popular, but they were being used by different, you know, artists, and even I used in the 1960s. I used synthesizers, but you know, never to be a featured thing. And so we felt this was the moment, maybe, to feature, you know, synthesizers. And he said, you know, think about it and see what you come up with. And what I came up with was the dum ba da 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 dum. And he said, "Oh, that's great," but he says, "Where's the tune?" And I said, "Well, you want a tune also?" You know, I said, I thought you wanted just electronic stuff." You know, he says, "No, you know, Stu, we got to have tunes, we got to have melodies and things." So here I am sitting at a piano down in Universal in a little upright piano, and I'm not the greatest pianist in the world, and I'm trying to play the dum da 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 with my left hand and try to find something, you know, melodic to play with the right, and I just fell into that. It was just simply a matter of my hands trying to work together, and I just fell into that bum ba da dum, you know, thing, which is obvious. And he said, "Oh, that's good. I like that. Let's go with that. Let's go." And so he sat there and we worked around, you know, and he said, no, let's go up, we'll go down. Oh, no, whatever you say. Hey, you work it out and play it for me later, and I'll let you know, you know. So that was about it. He left. We spent about 10 minutes together, and then I started to work out. And then after I put it down on paper, for the 4 synthesizer players and the rhythm section and everything to play, I started to think to myself, God, that thing sounds familiar. I said, why do I think I know that, you know? And you know, so I went up to the librarian, my friend, and I said, "Hey, you're familiar with all the classical music and literature and everything else." I said, "I wrote this theme for Knight Rider that goes bum ba da dum, bum ba da dum." He says, "Oh, you mean that thing from the opera and everything?" I said, "Oh, is that what it is?" You know. He said, "Well, it's pretty much close to it." I said, "Oh my God, I better change it." So I called Glen and I said to Glen, "You know what? I just discovered that little melody I played with the right hand. I said that it's actually a piece of classical music." He says, "So what?" And I said, he says, "Is it PD?" I said, "Yes, it is." I said, "It's all the way back to the, you know, the early 19th century, I think, early 19th century. I said, "Yeah, it's PD." He says, "So what do we care? So play it." He says, "That's it." He says, "I like it." He says, "So let's not screw it up." He says, "Let's just do it." And we did it. And I've lived with the people saying, "Did you base that on the thing?" No, I did not base it on it. I just accidentally played something that was similar to it, and it turned out, you know, to be almost, you know. So, yeah, but there was no process. The only process was that I was trying to figure out how to do this with the synth players, and at that point, I didn't get into any deep conversations with my friend Ian Underwood, who was one of the top synth players here in L.A., because he was on the road with Frank Zappa. But if I had spoken to Ian, he probably would have said, "Hey, just write out the parts, I'll overdub them all," you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't. He was on the road. He had took a thing with Frank Zappa to go on the road with him for a couple of months, and he wasn't available. And so I went and hired other synth players, and, they were all happy to get the job. And so I figured I got 4 synth lines here. I'll get 4 synth players, And so they all played live, and that running theme, Bum Ba Da Da Da, was not sequenced. It was played.
Okay.
Yeah, Ralph Grierson played it. Ralph Grierson, let's see, who else was on the date? Ralph Grierson, Mike Lang, Randy Kerber. I can't think of the 4th synth player's name. I can't think of it. It definitely was Grierson who played that, and Mike Lang was on the date, and Randy Kerber. I don't remember who the 4th guy was. Oh, it might have been Mike Boddicker, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been Mike. I'm not sure. I'm not certain, so I won't swear by it. Actually, I think on one of the liner notes to maybe the latest Knight Rider thing, it might mention the players. I can't remember. I do remember researching it for somebody who wanted to write something. It could have been the liner notes for the reincarnation of Knight Rider.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be on there. But anyway, that was it. There was no, there was no process. There was no, genius moment. There was no, singing like that. Nothing, No,
I think maybe the aha comes when you watch the show and you see how incredibly great the score and the theme fits. And I think actually creates and underlines the mood of the show.
It ended up after I started to put it down on paper. I wrote some sub themes, things like the little guitar lick that comes in after the first 8 bars or so, and then, of course, the bass line, which ended up being sampled by God knows how many rap things. And because I can't believe these people are paying me money for ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. I said, I can't believe these people are paying me money for that. But they did, because they wanted that thing. So, between the bass line, the little guitar riff, the melody, and the running theme, I had 4 elements to work with all the time.
Yeah. And you really use them throughout the show in the score.
That was deliberate. Yeah, it was deliberate to try to do whatever I could. I even got very orchestral with that chase to the airport. I think the cue was called Through a Truck or something.
Yeah.
And it's got the brass all playing the bum, the whole thing. And so we used the theme pretty good. Unfortunately, I only did a dozen episodes and then went over to 20th Century Fox to do The Fall Guy, because Glenn said, you got to come with me to do this thing here. I said, no, I want to do Knight Rider. It's a hit. I want to stay with the show. No, I need you over there. So actually, I had done only 6 episodes of Knight Rider at that point, but so I went between Universal and 20th doing both shows, not telling him I was still doing Knight Rider. He didn't know it. I did a half a dozen episodes. He didn't even know I did, because he thought I was just working on Fall Guy, but I ended up working it out so I could do both. So I did another half a dozen episodes. And unfortunately, a couple of other composers came in, and they all wanted to make their marks, so they kind of, most of them ignored the theme. And then they finally settled on the composer who did the last, 3 seasons worth or something.
Yeah.
And he in fact, actually, I think it was season 3. Season 3, I got a call from my friend at the Universal Library, my buddy, and he said to me, I don't know if you know it, he said, but there's a rumor going around that the composer and Knight Rider wants to, I'm not using his name right now. If you want to say it, go ahead. But I don't want to make any derogatory remarks. That he wants to write a new theme for Knight Rider. and he's actually got a session called to record the theme, on his new theme. They want to throw out the old Knight Rider. So I said, thanks for calling, and I called Glen immediately on the phone, and he got on, and I said, Glen, they're talking, this composer wants to change the theme, wants to write a new theme for Knight Rider. And Glen, well, of course, it hit Glen because he's got his name on it,
Yeah.
So, yeah, not on. He said, over my dead body. He said they changed that.
Yeah.
He said, thanks for calling. I'll get back to you. The next thing I know, the whole session is canceled and everything's dropped because Glen called the network and he said they're talking about changing the Knight Rider theme, and the network says if they do, we drop the show. So Glen says, do me a favor, and would you call the brass up at Universal Television and tell them that? And so they did. The network called the big honchos up there, the Wasserman and everything, and they said to him, we'll drop that show if they change the theme. So they sent the word down, there will be no new theme on Knight Rider.
Okay.
And so he was, he was stuck with it, so,
Well, I think in all fairness, I've seen all 90 episodes many times, and I think that there's a lot of credit. Of course, huge credit to you for creating it. But I also think that the different variations, both the variations that you do in the 12, 13 episodes that you score, but also the variations that Don Peake, now I mentioned his name, does,
yes,
is a big credit to the show. Of course, he wouldn't be able to do it if you hadn't made the first work and made the foundation for it. But
after that thing where he got canceled, where his theme was dropped, any attempt at a new theme was dropped, he started to occasionally do a couple of bars of the theme here and there.
Yeah.
But he tried to avoid it as much as possible because it made more money for him. Every time he used the theme, it cost him, he had to go, if he had a 20-second cue and there were 10 seconds of theme, he only got credit for 10 seconds of original music. So, but anyway, that's Knight Rider. And did I know all the people? No, I never met David Hasselhoff. I passed him by one day while he was outside the stage taking a break, and I walked over and said, hi, I'm Stu Phillips, I do the music. He says, oh, hi, Stu, and that was it. Now, I have I've heard things. He's a lovely guy and he's a great guy, but that was my communication with him at that. But hey, he was an actor. He was on the set. He maybe was trying to rehearse lines in his mind, and the last thing in his mind was getting into a conversation with somebody. So
you're probably
but
right
that's
about
it.
that.
Unlike Galactica, where I basically knew everybody, almost everybody in the cast I knew well, and we traveled in England. We traveled in England. Did a thing there at the Birmingham. Birmingham, England had a big convention.
Yeah.
And Galactica had a booth there and everything with. Let's see, I was there. I was there, and the two stars were there, and Jack was there, and two of the girls, two of the women, Cassiopeia or Cassiopeia, depending upon your pronunciation. Yeah, and the other one who was. She was Adama's daughter. No, not a. Yeah. And they were all there. We all traveled around the area around Birmingham and London and everything in a great big white limousine there, traveling through narrow streets of England. Everybody's looking at it like, who the hell is this? What rock and roll act is that? And but basically I got to know all of the people on Galactica very well.
Yeah.
I knew nobody on Knight Rider at all.
No, you
show.
Just had your part of bringing the show alive, and that was in a different area than actors and other people related to it.
Yeah. Also, Fall Guy, I knew Lee Majors. He was very nice man. Very, very congenial. Was always ready to spend 3-4 minutes and talk to you on the streets of 20th Century Fox Studios. He'd stop, he'd talk. He was very, very nice man.
Yeah.
And Heather, and I forgot the other guy, his partner, the partner, and I forgot his name. But a lot of the cast of some of the shows I worked on. The Monkees, I knew all the Monkees, obviously.
Yeah.
And I was on the set of that quite often because I had to supervise sometimes some of the music on it. It all depended on the show. Some shows I had absolutely nothing to do with the actual show. Others I did have, Yeah. So it depends.
In your
where
book,
are you in Copenhagen or?
I'm in a city called Middelfart. It's not as bad as it
I
sounds.
said to myself, I said to myself, now that you mention it, I remember saying to myself, my God, a guy has to live with that name all his life. I live in Middelfart.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it sounds. I'll email you some pictures of my kit replica. I have a kit replica myself. That I drive around in. There's some very lovely spots here around Middelfart. You say in the book, Stu, that you were not entirely satisfied with the sound of the theme recording.
Of what?
The recording that you wanted to change the recording of the theme.
Of which?
Of the Knight Rider theme.
I was satisfied with the sound. I was just saying, and when it got to the second season, I said to Universal, I said, I'd love to go back in. You have to pay for the musicians for the second season anyway. Yeah. So I said, I'd love to go back in now and do this the right way with one synth player overdubbing, and everything else. And they said, no, we don't touch it. Don't touch it. Leave it alone, So that was it. No, it wasn't that I was unsatisfied with the sound. No, I just wanted to do it. And by that time, I had learned how to more about synthesizers and learned that sometimes it's better sometimes for the one guy to put on the earphones and overdub himself than it is to have different players,
Yeah, so it was more a question of the recording.
that was it. It was no. I've always been happy with the sound that I eventually came out of the session.
I can imagine.
It's just
that
in the United States here, when you go to season 2, every season you have to pay the musicians who play on the main theme again.
Yeah.
Okay, when you pay them the first time, it's only good for one season. So they had to pay the musicians anyway. The stuff was recorded at Universal Studios, which is right on their lot. It's not like they have to go out and pay for a studio, And so I said to him, I'm not going to charge anything. I said, I just would love to just go in and do it again and do it, with the one. And they said, no, we'll just repay. We don't want to change anything. And then, of course, on season 3, when Don Peake decided I'm going to write my own theme, they just said absolutely not. So I do think he went in and re-recorded it though.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure because they had to repay the musicians, he went in and he re-recorded it. I think I really after my episodes, I lost interest in Knight Rider. You know. To be honest with you, I just lost interest in it because I knew I just missed out on a 5-year or 4 or 5 year show, which would have been really great. But that's all right. I ended up with a 5-year show with Fall Guy,
exactly,
and did 96, 97 episodes. But it would have been nice to do Knight Rider because at least that one I had written the theme, whereas Fall Guy I had nothing to do with the theme. It was a song that Glenn wrote with a friend of his. So 2 friends of his actually.
Do you remember how long of a time span did you work on Knight Rider from begin till end?
You mean on the theme?
Yeah, no. I mean, all in all, was it 4, 5 months, 1 year?
Well, it was weekly. Weekly.
Yeah.
If I recall, I don't remember what time of the year it went on, but the show went on weekly, so I was working on it weekly, every week. Basically 4 days to write. That would be about it. That would be about 4 days to write the score every week. Galactica was the same thing. Was about 3 to 4 days every week to write the score.
So how was that process? Did you get to see? I imagine that you got to see some kind of raw material regarding the episode, so that you had some kind of idea.
We spot a rough cut of every episode. Everybody does. The dialogue people, the sound effects, the Foley people, everybody involved in post-production. We all sit and we get to see this so-called final cut, which never was. It was always recut after it was supposedly the final cut, But we'd all get to see that, and then I would get a black and white dupe, which was horrible, and the film music editor and myself would then go into his room with his moviola, if you know what a moviola is.
No, I don't. You have to explain.
You don't know what a moviola is. Moviola is something that plays 35 mag film.
Okay.
In this case, it was and it's a green machine with 2 big reel with a feeder reel and a receiving reel, and it makes a racket. It makes a lot of noise as the sprockets go through the thing, but you're able to stop it frame by frame if you want on it, and move it 1 frame at a time if you want to. Manually, and we go there and we break down I have at the screening of the actual show, I would, if Glenn wasn't there, some associate producer would be there with notes from Glenn about I want music here or I don't want music here. Tell Stu to write something funny. I know the scene's not funny, but I want funny music, or the opposite, the scene is funny, but don't write funny music, whatever. I'd get notes from Glenn like that. And the associate producer would pass them on to me, and then we'd spot where to want music, and then the music editor and myself would go into the room, and we'd spend a couple of hours, and we'd modify. Let's start a little earlier or a little later, or what? I'll decide after you send me the sheets, the breakdown sheets where we start. All these minor little things that go into working on something, and then I would leave, and then he would start writing down. And that day, in the early days, he would write down by hand on a piece of yellow legal paper, he'd write down the breakdowns, at 5.5 seconds, so-and-so says this or does that. At 7 2/3 seconds, somebody does that, and he'd break down the whole scene, and he'd do a whole reel, and then he would hand it to a typist who would type up the stuff, and then a messenger would bring it to my house. So actually, I basically, after I saw the episode, I would start writing the music the following day, because I generally never get the notes until like 9 o'clock at night. The messenger would arrive with my notes, and I was be damned if I'm going to start writing at 9 o'clock at night, because I kept a schedule. I went to bed every night at midnight and got up at 6 o'clock. And made up my mind I was not going to be one of these composers who wrote all night long and everything else and killed himself, doing his craft. I said, I'm going to live a life, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's, So, and then the next morning I'd get up at 6:30. I'd go in, start peruse what the notes are, and decide basically at that time what orchestra I felt I needed, because I had a choice. Generally, on something like Knight Rider, I had a budget basically that covered 24 musicians, one of which was me, and one of which was the contractor. Both of us got double scales, so that took it down to 21, actual payrolls.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would think, oh God, I can't make it with that. I need a few more, and so I'd call the Harry Garfield up at the music, the head of music, and I'd say I can't make it with this size. I need 3 or 4 more guys, and he'd make such a thing. Oh, we can't afford all this crap, all this overtime. I said, well, you know what? Tell Glenn that I can't do what he wants with 21 men. I need 26, musicians. And said, go call Glenn and go, take it up with him. And he'd never call him. He'd never call Glenn. He's all right. You got it. Yeah, I can't stand this Glen Larson. He's always over budget. Everybody in Universal was always over budget according to them, and so that's how it would go. And I'd decide what I wanted, and then I'd call the contractor up and tell him I want this size orchestra. I want 2 trumpets, 2 trombone, whatever, and 2 guitars and a drummer and percussion and 4 celli or whatever I need, 8 violins or whatever I needed, and then I'd give her a few of my first choices on all the chairs, I'd try to get so-and-so, because some of the musicians who were so familiar with my stuff, if I knew they were playing it, I could write less on their part because they knew what I wanted,
Yeah.
They were used to playing for me, and they knew that, so I didn't have to get into details. And then she'd call me back maybe, 6 hours later, say, well, we couldn't get so-and-so, and we couldn't get so-and-so. I got this one, and I went, all right, and I'd know what I had to do. And then I'd go about writing, and little by little, I'd get packages from Universal of more, reel 2 or reel 3, until finally I had the whole breakdown. But half the time, the music editor might not get reel 1, the first reel that they turned over to him. He might get the last reel. So I would be working backwards. I'd be writing the last reel of the show before I wrote the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, but that's it. Like I said, you make a living. That's it. And then I had, I had a person, an assistant who I used to say was on call. If I felt like there was a lot of music here, and I wasn't going to be able to orchestrate all of it because I generally did all my orchestration myself. By doing that, I was able not to have to write detailed sketches.
Yeah.
Sketches.
Yeah.
The sketch is like a 2 or 3 line musical thing where you put down ideas and things, and then you expand it into on the orchestra score. So if I was orchestrating, my sketches would be bare minimum, which would save me time because I could just jot down ideas and knew that when I went to orchestrate, I could expand. So, but on some of the stuff I didn't. So occasionally here and there, I would call in let's see, Knight Rider. Who was working with me on Knight Rider? Bill Broughton, actually. Bruce Broughton's brother. You know who Bruce Broughton is, composer?
Heard of him.
His brother was a musician. He was a trombonist. He was excellent. He lives in Australia now. And he was an excellent, and he was a good orchestrator and everything. So I'd call Bill and say, hey, I need a little help here, and he'd come in and he might orchestrate one or two cues, generally, and those cues I would sketch out pretty complete then, I would have it complete, but at least I didn't have to do the manual labor of having to put all the notes on the score. So that would save me some time, and that's how it went, one to the other. And then after you got all done writing the cue and you said, wow, that's good, I like it, it's working real great, then you get a phone call from the music editor, and he'd say, did you write M13 yet? And I said, yeah, I did. I just turned it over to... Okay, he says, well, forget about it. He says, they recut the scene now, and it's like 40 seconds shorter, and they reversed the scene, they reversed the cuts and everything, and I'd have to go all over again, and I have to try to salvage what I wrote. It was a lot of laughs.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Working that way.
It really, when you come down to it and think about it, yeah, it was a nightmare, but somehow you just looked at it and kept doing it and kept grinding, and then looked forward to the day and a half or so between shows where you didn't have to do anything. Yeah.
But I also imagine that you get into some kind of rhythm in order to so that what bits of the theme to use when it should be funny and when it should be action packed and so on.
Yeah, well, actually, by having those four themes, those four motifs from the theme, sometimes saved my rear end because I was able to say, you know what, the little theme from the little thing that I wrote for the guitar for the main theme, that'll work really great here. And I could, and in that case, I could just start writing the first part of it. And if I handed it to Bill and I say, you got the theme there. Yeah. All right, just finish it out, and I saved myself writing 2 pages or something, and everything was time consuming,
Yeah.
Yeah, because everything was pencil and paper and erasers,
Yeah. It was a different time, but still you got a lot of variation in instruments and in the way you use the theme in the score, and that really brings I think the show to life.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. Always appreciate.
I wouldn't call myself totally objective, rather subjective when it comes to Knight Rider. But I can't remember a show where I've had the same feeling that the music was such an integral part. I normally refer to it as the heartbeat of Knight Rider, as I said. So I think it's really fantastic. So
I was just thinking, I was in Denmark 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in Copenhagen twice, and in a town in West Denmark that's sort of a resort town. It's on the ocean, and I remember because we had to fly from California to Copenhagen. It was such a long flight that they thought that I was playing tennis at that time this was back in the 1990s, and they said, it would be nice instead of just diving right into all of this activity, if they took 2 days off at this little resort place.
Yeah.
And it was just lovely. It was really great, and I cannot for the love of me remember what the name was. And I look back in my photographs and books of my travels and everything, and then for some particular reason, I don't have it there, but I do remember the town, and it was in western Denmark.
Was it a town? We've got a lot of summer holiday.
And it was a resort. Yeah, it was a resort town in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And a resort place, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there were tennis courts there, I remember, so that we were able to kind of like keep our act up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
we've got a lot of good places in the western Denmark. Near the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those places there. I was there, and then I was in Copenhagen a couple of times.
Yeah.
I loved. This one thing, we played this tennis club in Copenhagen. And everybody there, like you, was speaking English, you know.
Yeah.
And we all said on the tennis team, it's so nice to come and play at a club where in a foreign country where everybody that you talk to is still speaking English. And I remember the guy who was in charge. He said to us, we feel, he says, here in Denmark, we feel that if we don't learn English, nobody's going to learn Danish, and we're going to be locked out of the world trade.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Because nobody's going to understand us.
Yeah.
So he said, we decided that we're going to learn English because everybody seems to speak a little of that.
It's totally necessary. Living in a small country, you know, we're around 5.5 million inhabitants. So so the population isn't big enough to really make it big. So of course we have to adapt to the rest of the world.
But I just thought the way he put it, he said like we'd be isolated if we didn't learn English because nobody's going to learn Danish.
Yeah. So it's much easier.
Back to music.
Yeah.
All right, back to music.
Yeah, back to music or back to Night Rider. You've been participating in NightCon some years ago. A convention for Night Rider.
I attended a Night Rider convention in Germany.
Yeah.
In Düsseldorf, outside of Düsseldorf, at the Warner Brothers film place. You know, like the Universal theme park.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers had a theme park outside of Düsseldorf, and I went there. Actually, my wife went with me, and Dawn Peake was there actually.
Yeah.
And and that was a nice thing. And I do remember some people drove down from the Netherlands and from Belgium. One person from Belgium in particular, who is still a good friend of mine. She was a big fan and everything else. She came down with her husband, who she since divorced. But she's been communicating with me since 2000. When the hell was that? About 2006 or 5, somewhere. Night Rider came. The first Night Rider album came out in 2005, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, about that. And then I guess it was like 2006 or 7 or something that they had this convention. In Germany, and we went there, and that was very nice. And then, of course, I did some night. I kept active in the Night Rider Club and everything else for a while. I was, I visited the Night Rider pages, see what was going on. I would answer a lot of people's emails and questions and things, and I participated in a lot of the night thing, and also in England, in London. I don't know if it's London or not. I shouldn't say it's London, but in England, for a while, year after year, there was always this Night Rider thing that they had there, and they kept asking me to come and. but they couldn't afford to pay my way, and I just to go to England at that time for like 2 days or something was just kind of like not my thing. But they said if you just do some things. So I remember I did a whole bunch of things for them. One of them was William Daniels, the voice of Kit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they invited he and I and William and Daniels said no, he wasn't about to pay his way over to England for anything. So they said maybe you and William Daniels could do something for us. So we got together, and he came over to my house, and we put together a little skit where he played the part of the voice of Kit. And I was interviewing him, and we did this, and we recorded this. And at the end of the thing, I remember the joke that we came up with was at the end of the thing, William Daniels, or Kit, in that place, he was playing the voice of Kit, says to me, by the way, who are you? And I said, I'm Stu Phillips. He says, who the hell is that? And I said, well, I wrote the music to Knight Rider. And he says, there was music?
That's nice.
And he says, I didn't know there was music. He says, I was in this little box in the car. He says, I didn't know there was any music on Knight Rider. And we sent that tape. We sent it over to them. And, they were overjoyed. They were so happy. And then I did something else. My brother-in-law is British, and with a very, very heavy British accent. And so I filmed something outside in where I live in the valley. There's a British pub that wasn't far from my house. And I said to him, I'm going to write a little skit where I interview you on the street, and you come out and you don't know anything about Knight Rider. What's a Knight Rider, And we go through this whole bit, and then finally I say to him, well, Knight Rider, bump-a-da-dum, bump-a-da. Oh, that thing? Yeah, I know that thing. I know that. Oh, God, that's what you're talking about, We go there, and we filmed that, and we sent that over for one of their conventions, and they were very happy with that. And, I did a few other things that we sent to that thing. I don't know if they still do it every year. They haven't contacted me in the last at least 5 or 6 years.
Yes, I think that there's definitely conventions in the U.S. Every year. Well, of course, the COVID-19 situation has stopped it. But now coming into 2022. It's going to be a 40-year anniversary for the show.
Yeah.
So a big year. I'm trying to teach the Danes about Knight Rider as well. In my car, I have an external loudspeaker, so I can tell Kit to play the Knight Rider music. And your theme comes roaring out of this external loudspeaker. So teaching all the people in Middelfart about Knight Rider, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. It's funny. I just I had a fan in Alabama in the United States here who asked me if I would sign. He has a kit car that he built. And he managed to he put a little thing on part of the dashboard he made removable.
Okay.
And he sent it around. He sent it around to some of the people to sign. And I know William Daniels signed it, and the stunt coordinator signed it, and the 2 girls that were in it signed it. And somebody other signature I didn't recognize, and so he said, "If I send this to you, will you sign it?" And I said, "Yeah." So it's funny. I just did it 2 days ago. I signed the thing, and it went off on the parcel back to Alabama. And now you call and say you got a kit. You got a kit car.
Yeah.
I have some pictures of me in a kit car in Birmingham, with a guy who had built one. Jesus, I think they're on the. I know they're on the internet, or somebody's got them out there, because that's where I picked them up from. But it's me sitting in the kit car, and he took pictures of me sitting in it. It was outside of a British pub.
Great, yeah.
You know what? That wasn't Birmingham. That was London. That was England when I went for my book tour.
Okay.
That was in London.
Yeah, but
I did that was 2003 or 4. When I did my tour, and I went to London to publicize the book. And this guy had a kit car. He said, "Will you come out and sit in my kit car and take pictures?" So I did. And I'm sure he published them all over the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. He must have been thrilled.
Yeah.
So I can tell you that the autograph that you signed for me in Stu when I purchased the book is also hanging here in my small Night Rider shrine.
Your Night Rider shrine.
Yeah. I have I think a lot of them purchased on eBay, of course, but also some of them gathered in the US, and I've met David Hasselhoff myself. I think I have around 60 autographs from people involved in some way in the show. And of course, so talking to you like this is a massive experience for me. It's I've been thrilled, and I've looked so much forward to it for a long time.
It's very kind. It's very kind of you, Jacob, for saying those nice things.
But Stu, I think you have to. I hope that you know and realize that to the Night Rider community, you're a hero. You created the theme that are on. I meet a lot of people also in Denmark. Hey, that's my ringtone.
For a while that I won. That's about one of the few awards I ever got. Was I got an award from BMI Broadcast Music, who was my the collector of my money. They gave me an award. At the same time, they gave Lalo Schifrin one for his theme to Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
And myself, Night Rider, and both of us had exceeded 1 million requests of ringtones.
Yeah.
in the first year of ringtones, when the ringtones came out. Yeah, Night Rider and Mission Impossible were the two biggest. Yeah. The two biggest, I don't say selling, because I don't know that they sold them. I think you would just, they were kind of like you plugged in and you got it onto your phone or something. I really don't know. I never used it for a ringtone because I don't use cell phones except to emergencies. So, call 911.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've got it on mine.
I don't use cell. I'm not a slave to a cell phone. It sits in my house turned off, and the only time I turn it on is when I go out of the house.
Yeah.
So I can communicate and call somebody if something happens to me.
Yeah.
But that's about it. I'm unfortunately an old-fashioned people. I like telephones and I don't like the reason we're on a phone call and not on a Zoom or one of those other things is because I hate the way I look on those things.
It would have been great also, but of course, as I said and I wrote to you, I'll take this any day.
Okay, all right.
So
that's good enough.
But
I think any more questions, Jacob?
No, I think we should. I think I've emptied out my long list of questions here, and it's been fabulous talking to you.
It's always hey Jacob. There's always email. Yeah. And I answer my emails, no matter who the fan is. Yeah. If I feel that it's a legitimate fan and not some, jerk or something, I answer all my fans' emails. I personally do it. Yeah. I don't have somebody sitting around here and
you should be
working for me.
You should be very careful what you say, because this is going on the Knight Rider Historians YouTube channel, and I think that they've just passed 40,000 subscribers.
Oh God! Oh no, boy. Maybe. Hey, maybe pencil this out. Yeah, pencil it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Tell them I go through 5 layers of security for
you do that.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been nice talking to you, and of course I'll keep.
My
contact.
pleasure. Yeah, Jacob. My pleasure, and I'm glad we finally hooked up. I know it took some time, but like I said in one of my emails, be patient. I'll get around to it.
I'll just say you're my hero, and this was definitely worth waiting for.
All right. Thank you, Jacob.
Thanks so
Have
much.
a good day.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Take care and bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
And now, while we listen to Joe's selection of Knight Rider music that we received directly from Don Peake himself, we'd like to thank these Patreon supporters. Look at you guys scrolling up the screen to my right. Wait a minute, how can you tell which side is my right, since you can't see me because I'm not on camera? Oh well, you know what I mean. We're featuring these fine supporters at our Knight Rider Prop Restorer level. Thank you very much for your support. And for those of you at the Knight Rider History Hunter level, we're recognizing you right now in the description. Now, if you enjoyed seeing this golden nugget of Knight Rider history being rescued from obscurity, then please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support would empower us to bring you even more of these historical nuggets. We are the Knight Rider Historians. Till next time, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.